So this is going to be a video explaining kind of basic astrology. So the sign that everybody knows is called the sun sign, and everybody knows that sign because it's the most easy one to find out. All you have to know is the date you were born, so the date of the month. You don't really need to know your year. The sun in your chart represents the self. It's your personality and your sense of vitality. So, for example, a sun sign would be, if you're born at the start of January, then you're probably a Capricorn. And if you're born at the end of January, then you're probably an Aquarius. And the reason why you might not resonate so much with your sun sign is because in astrology, each individual person has what we call a birth chart or a natal chart. And in that chart consists of the 10 planets. I think it's 10. And in astrology, we count the sun and moon as planets. It just makes it easier. So the planets in astrology represent a different part of your personality. So the sun represents your ego, basically, like your life force. And then you have the moon, and that represents your emotions and feelings, and basically what your comfort place is, and basically like the habits you have, the way you express your emotion. And then you have Mercury, which is like your communication style and how you think. And then you have Venus and Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and all the rest of the planets. But basically, with your sun sign, it just represents one small part of yourself. And basically, if the sun is the only planet you have in that one sign, and the rest of your planets are in different signs, then that could be why you don't feel like your sun sign that much, or resonated with it as much. But I will go through each sun sign and explain them. Just basic sun sign astrology. If you're an Aries sun, you tend to be really bold and brave, kind of rash, and they can be selfish and quick-tempered. But with their quick temper, because everything with them is quick, when they get angry or flustered quickly, they're most likely to be just as quick to forget about it and get over it. They're really good at starting things, but they might not be as good at finishing them. They might have a lot of unfinished tasks and stuff like that. Then you have Taurus. Taurians are generally loyal and practical and steadfast, but they can be very stubborn and self-indulgent. They usually try to find security through accumulating material things. Then you have Sun in Gemini. If you're a Gemini, you're probably witty and love to conversate. And you can be very versatile. You can also get bored easily, and the loquaciousness can turn into gossiping, really just over talking. I think probably the main thing that stands out with a Gemini is that they're either always talking or always doing something, because they are a sign that gets bored easily. Then you have Sun in Cancer. If your Sun is in Cancer, you probably love to nurture people and take care of people, kind of motherly. You can be very sensitive to others, but there's a tendency to be overly emotional, and you can get pretty moody, and on the lower vibration, there's a tendency to be passive aggressive sometimes. Then if your Sun is in Leo, these are like the performers of the zodiac, and Leos probably love to entertain, and they're usually pretty good at it. They're like naturals at it. Their symbol is the lion, so these people are pretty protective of the people and things they love. They can be territorial. Basically just think of a lion in the jungle. They can be really romantic, but they can be vain and bossy. They do tend to have big egos. They also have a need for validation and to be seen important by others. If your Sun is in Virgo, you're probably the kind to help people, to be of service and to be needed. You're probably analytical and very detail oriented, like good at noticing the small things and tiny little details that not many other people can see. But you can be overly critical and have high standards and be really picky. If your Sun is in Libra, you tend to be very diplomatic and a peacemaker, generally pretty charming, but you can tend to have very shallow connections with people and like to keep things on a very friendly surface level instead of getting into the deep emotions, really. They're generally in love with love, and a lot of Libras are probably always in some kind of relationship, because they love to keep harmony and peace and balance so much. They tend to avoid confrontations and won't say no when they need to. If your Sun is in Scorpio, you're probably really focused and determined on whatever you set your mind to. Scorpios are generally really trustworthy and really good at keeping secrets, but they can be very jealous and manipulative and revengeful if they're operating from the lower vibration. They can have a hard time letting go. If your Sun is in Sagittarius, you're probably generally optimistic and happy-go-lucky. You probably like to travel, and you might have a kind of anywhere but here personality. You're probably opinionated, but you can be blunt sometimes and preachy, a bit of a commitment phobic, and the tendency to exaggerate things like stories and basically what you say you can do and over-promising things. But you can be very inspirational as well. If your sun is in Capricorn, you're probably determined and discerning, generally pretty strong, because the Capricorn symbol is the mountain goat. That basically means that Capricorns can withstand lots of hardship and be unwavering in whatever situation and basically stick through everything. But they can be image conscious and workaholics. They usually struggle with expressing their emotions. If you're an Aquarius, you're probably eccentric and quirky in some way. Very freedom loving, innovative, generally pretty friendly, and likes to socialize and be a part of groups and networking. But they can be kind of oblivious to other people's emotions and needs. They basically just respond to people in a very detached, unemotional way. They're generally rebels. They like to rebel against things. If your sun is in Pisces, you're generally compassionate and loving. You can be very self-sacrificing, very intuitive, but you can be very deceived and can be deceptive easily, a bit elusive, a bit codependent. They're like emotional sponges. They can just feel everything around them and take in all the energies and emotions of like any environment they're in, and that can be overwhelming sometimes, and there can be a tendency for escapism in some form, whether it's like drinking or drugs or daydreaming. It's usually some form of escapism, but they're very creative and imaginative people. So that was all the signs. That was just a quick interpretation, I guess. There was a lot that I didn't say, but they were just basic generalities. Generalities. Is that a word? Of the sun signs. And yeah, if you didn't find yourself resonating with any of those, then that's common. It's understandable because so many more facets to someone's personality than just their sun sign. So yeah.